Hi, everyone. This is Sebastian Traeger. I'm the Managing Director at Reliability, and we are here today with another episode of Reliability 4.0. As always, we're on a mission to make the world a more reliable place. And today, we are thrilled to be joined by Scott Wiebold of International Paper. Scott, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Sebastian, for having me.
Before we kind of dive into the main content, I would just love folks to hear a little bit about what you do at International Paper, what your role is, and then even your origin story. How did you even get into reliability engineering in the first place?
Yeah, sure. Well, right now, what I do is I'm the root cause failure analysis subject matter expert. So, what does that mean? Well, basically I help plants improve reliability by cultivating root cause analysis expertise through developing, sustainable RCA systems and training, mentoring, and coaching, right? So that's really kind of what my main focus is right now. I've been in the pulp and paper industry for about 26 years. Most of my career has been in some form of maintenance or reliability leadership. I had an operations role for about a year, and that was probably the longest 5 years of my life, right? But really, I guess I've been pretty fortunate. I've had a lot of different roles and different experiences, and I've been exposed to a lot over my career, which, it really is doing well for me now because I can relate to a lot of people, as people, when I'm talking to people, trying to help them out, I can say, well, yeah, I've done that, or I've had that role, or I've had that problem. So it's been it's been a journey.
That's great. Yeah. And so how did you get into reliability engineering? What did that look like? How did that start?
Well, really, it's just kind of part of who I am. I've always been somebody looking to improve things, wanting to figure out why things fail. I mean, I've been doing root cause analysis my whole career, really. I've always just been drawn to it. And that's kind of why most of my career has been kind of in the reliability field to some extent, because that's kind of where I'm drawn to, right? And kind of just doing RCFA and all that just comes naturally to me. So I've been drawn to it.
That's great. Now, are there, I always like to talk to folks about things outside of work. Are there kind of hobbies that might relate or not? What is it that you do outside of work that you really enjoy and that, just kind of connects?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually an ex-runner. I've completed four marathons and numerous half marathons. But right now I can't run anymore, but I ride a bike. And I'm not talking about the bike where you put on a leather jacket. I'm talking about the bike you put the spandex on, right?
Okay.
So got a little running joke in my house. If my kids are, I have two boys. If they're home and they see me in my bike outfit, they'll say, hey, Dad, can you start shopping in the grown-up section?
Great. So, I mean, that's amazing. So you've done multiple marathons. Do you have any kind of long bike ride that you've got your sights set on and that you've either done or that you're hoping to do?
That's a great question. Actually, I just did a 100-mile century ride for a Tour de Cure diabetes, raising money for diabetes. It was in Orlando a couple months ago, and that was just about 100 miles, 103 actually. So I just completed that.
I guess that's amazing. I don't have context. Is that a 4 hour, like 4 or 5 hours? How long does that take?
It was more like 6 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was.
Okay.
It was a long one.
And you're just pedaling away that whole time.
Yeah, the whole time. It's all flat, right, down in Florida. Okay. So you're always pedaling, which is a lot different than going up and down hills. So it was actually harder than a marathon because, like, a marathon you can walk, right? Well, I guess you can stop the bike, but typically you don't, right? So you got to always keep going.
Right. Wow, that's incredible. Well, that's an amazing thing outside of work, and I think just shows a little bit of like your drive, your energy, and focus. So that's really neat. Turning back to work. So this podcast, what we want to do is highlight our hope is we want to talk about technology and how to make it practical for reliability engineering. And one of the things, obviously, our company has a partnership with International Paper around our software product called EasyRCA. So we want to talk more specifically today about using this as kind of a case study, an opportunity to just explore with folks how technology has specifically been helpful to your organization. So talk for a minute about what challenges or problems were you facing before implementing EasyRCA?
Yeah, let me step back just a little bit.
Sure.
And talk about the logic tree, right? Because EasyRCA, you can do a fishbone and you can do 5 whys, but the primary thing you can do with it is the logic tree. And so just real quickly, I've always been really good at root cause analysis, right? I've been good. Everywhere I've been, I've kind of got the juicy ones, the ones that got a lot of outside attention, really complex, or, cost a lot of money, because I was good at it. But then we had an event one time, and I was introduced to this tool called the logic tree, which was made by Charles Latino back in the 70s, and someone gave me their book, Bob, Ken, and Mark Latino's book, Root Cause Analysis, Improving Performance for Bottom Line Results. And so I read that book, and I started using the logic tree. And what I realized is I wasn't as good as I thought I was, right? So then I started training people on using the logic tree, and they started getting better. Right? I mean, not a little bit, a lot. And they started finding a lot more root causes. So it's really, really exciting. So getting back to EasyRCA, one of the roadblocks, there's roadblocks to everything, right? One of the roadblocks to using the logic tree is, how we used to do it is we used to, and for those who don't know what the logic tree is, just think of it as like a flow diagram for now. But we needed some sort of program to build the flow diagram. So whether we used Visio or PowerPoint or whatever, we used that. And then when you talk about evidence, right, because it's all about, evidence, what evidence do we have to prove or disprove our hypotheses? We put all that evidence in an Excel spreadsheet, right? So you had these 2 programs you were working in. It was cumbersome. And that was a roadblock, right? Some people would say, well, I'm not going to use the logic tree because I got to do all this other work and I don't have the time. So, and that's legit. I understand that. Then here comes EasyRCA, right? We started using EasyRCA, and EasyRCA is a software built for root cause analysis, right? So everything's in that tool. The tool's very easy to use. EasyRCA, right? It's very easy.
Right.
All the evidence and pictures, everything's right there at your fingertips, right? So it really takes away that roadblock. It totally eliminated that roadblock that was there before EasyRCA. So now what's happening is more and more people are using it because it's easier. So you think of failures, you think, well, something broke, right, or some kind of component broke, but we're actually using it for safety events. When people get hurt, we're using it for environmental events or operational type things, right? So we're using it more and more on different things that we never really used root cause analysis on before.
That's great. So I want to dive into the use cases in a second, but just taking a step back like you did, and I thought that was really helpful to frame just kind of that awakening you had from, I used to do root cause analysis, thought I was good, and then I got introduced to the logic tree. What about doing root cause analysis with a logic tree? Why is that? Well, 2 questions. One quick objection would be like, well, gosh, it seems so much more complicated than just doing a 5 whys. So one question would be, is it? And then the second question is, why is it more powerful than some of the other tools out there, like a 5 why or fishbone?
Yeah. So let's take the 5 whys, because pretty much everybody knows that, right? The 5 whys, the problems with the 5 whys, there's a few of them. The biggest one is that failures are never linear. right? It's never one cause. You're always finding multiple root causes to failures. The 5 whys actually, it was designed back, years ago at the Toyota. And it was really designed for the frontline workers, right? So if they were having some sort of issue or problem, they were encouraged to use the 5 whys. Okay, why is this happening? Okay, why? Until, and a lot of times they would be able to solve it right there in the line. And if they couldn't solve it, the problem would be given to their supervisor, and then a team would be put together, and some sort of, other methodology would be used, like the logic tree. Logic tree wasn't designed back then, but anyways. So 5 whys really was never designed for root cause analysis the way we think about it today. So the logic tree, the advantages there, the whole methodology and how you work through it, it really has the breadth and the depth to uncover all the root causes. And I'm still amazed today, after we do an analysis and I step back and look at it, and just all the systemic root causes that we identify, it's really amazing.
Yeah. So effectively, it's giving you a lot more, almost like seeing a problem in 3D, whereas, maybe a 5 why, it's like, yeah, it's really useful for if there's something straight in front of me that I can maybe solve right away. But if I have to go any deeper, I just need a tool that's more comprehensive in order to do that. And do you hear, and I know this is something you've been using for a long time and you're training your organization, but is there pushback and it's just too complicated? Or is it the type of thing that once people get going, that kind of fear factor and the complication goes down? What's been your experience there?
No, it's more like, wow, this is awesome.
Okay.
It's easy, right? It's not a complicated methodology. I mean, yeah, there's some things you need to know, right? And there's some things you need to practice, right? You're not going to be an expert right away. You're going to need to practice. But the methodology and how you use it's really simple. And the way it's designed, how we ask the questions and how you build a logic tree, it really helps out in the analysis too. And at the end result, it provides a graphical representation of your analysis, right? So you can look, you can pull it up on the screen and look at it, and you can see everything that was looked at was proven false. You can see all the failure paths that reach down and identify latent roots. You can see it all right there, very, very clearly, much better than some written up executive summary would.
Right. Great. So you gave us kind of that high level, starting with logic tree, and said, hey, we were doing this or learning this. We needed a software platform that was going to support the same thinking in a tool that kind of did everything sort of out of the box. So getting down to EasyRCA, I know for you all, there was an implementation process. So in your all's case, there was some work to be done. Can you describe how that implementation went, how long it took, whether it was better, worse than you were expecting in terms of just getting the tool integrated with the other systems that you're using?
Yeah, no, really, it all starts with a good strategy, right? How are we going to roll this out? It all comes down to, train. How are we going to train? How are we going to communicate? I know that the Reliability Institute, you did training for us, right? On basic training. And that's really, and that now I'm doing a lot of the training, right? And putting in systems where as we have new people come on board, there's materials and stuff in there where they can train. Also, they have support in their different facilities, right? Because I'm trying to train experts and build expertise in all the different facilities that we have, so this can be sustainable, because we're going to continue to have turnover, right? New people coming in, people retiring. So there's got to be sustainability there. How can you keep this thing rolling? So, that strategy and building that infrastructure is pretty important. But, it's a lot easier, Sebastian, when everyone loves the software.
Right,
if people
right.
didn't love the software, boy, it would be hard. It'd be difficult, but
Yeah, so I think, yeah, to your point, implementation is always going to be a challenge. But if you start with a tool people actually want to use, now at least a large barrier is gone. Obviously, there's still the inertia of the way people do things already, and the ongoing change management process. And as you said already, as people gain an expertise and get more familiar, they're going to be more excited. You mentioned a couple of use cases from safety and quality and reliability. What would you say maybe a couple of typical use cases are from, again, and I know some of the use cases are going to be confidential, but more general ones? What are some use cases organizationally for using EasyRCA and for doing RCAs?
well, again, really, you can use this methodology and this tool on really any undesirable event that you have, right? If you have a piece of equipment or a process that's not, for some reason, it's not, producing the output that it should, right? I mean, you can use this process to figure out why and what you need to do to address it. I mean, really, and that's part of the kind of opening everyone's eyes about, hey, it's not just about when components fail. Like we can use this on really any problem that we have, and we're starting to do that across the organization, right? Because people see it,
Hmm.
how easy it is. So, yeah. So hopefully I answered that question, but
No, that's great.
it's really anything.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it's not merely mechanical or physical failures. There are other use cases where people are as they learn kind of problem solving and as they have a tool to support them in that, they're finding more and more problems they can solve.
Yes, and also proactively, right? So FMEAs, right? You can use this process kind of like an FMEA to get in front of it. Like, okay, we have this piece of equipment. It hasn't failed yet, but how could it fail, right? So you
Hmm.
can use this process to kind of figure out and get in front of a lot of failures as well.
Hmm. It's great. In terms of just kind of getting even more granular, in terms of features, what are you finding the most valuable and the most useful for the organization? Obviously, you've said the logic tree already, kind of that visual tool. So we'll assume that's useful. What other kind of things are you finding helpful or people finding useful?
Well, really a lot of it, how it all is put together. Um, People really like the task aspect of EasyRCA. You know, if you're in an analysis and you say, okay, we need someone to go get this piece of information so we can verify this hypothesis, right? You can put a verification task right in there. And once you hit save, an email goes out to that person, and you can see it very clearly on the screen what it is and if it's overdue or if it's completed. And you can also do that with corrective actions too. So when you find systemic roots, you can also track them, track your action items to your systemic roots through the EasyRCA process. So it's just there's a lot of really good things about it. And I'm going to talk about AI a little bit. That might be one of your questions a little bit later, but
Yeah.
the kind of a recent thing that enhancement that was put in the EasyRCA is this little AI button. So when there's a place there where you can write a summary of findings, right? And I mean, all engineers are really, really good writers, right? No, no. And you know what? It takes longer to create something than it does to edit something. Okay. And
Hmm.
none of us have any time, right? We're all just booked. So now, after you complete your logic tree, you can hit this little button and it'll actually generate a summary of findings, right, for you. And sometimes the summary of findings is fine. Sometimes you'll go in there and read it and just make a few changes. But that's really helped speed things up, right? Because now someone doesn't have to sit there and try to wordsmith some, 5, 6, 7, or a couple paragraphs, right? That's really cool.
Huh. That's great. That's good to hear. And just, obviously trying to make this open-ended, but what we're trying to do as a company is just listen and hear what people are doing in an RCA process and automate and speed up as much as we can without losing any of that quality and while always putting the experts in charge. So we never want AI to take over such that an expert can't do it. But I think if we can provide tools that speed things up, I can relate to that. I don't love writing. And so anytime I can see a draft of something and edit it, I'd much rather do that than start from scratch. So I'm glad to hear that has been a helpful feature. Have you been able to see measurable benefits since implementing EasyRCA, either whether it's reduced downtime or cost savings or improved efficiency or just more RCAs from now, whatever that metric is? Have you been able to see benefits?
Oh yeah, I mean we see benefits for sure. What we're seeing is better work, right? More quality analysis. We're seeing people identify root causes that they would say to me, "Hey, I never would have found this. We never would have gotten to this if we weren't using this methodology." Right. And that's really what it's all about. It's increasing, the quality of your analysis to identify those systemic roots. And obviously you got to have really good action items to address them and then complete those action items. But that's a whole nother story.
Right. Right.
But yeah, we're definitely seeing it.
That's great. That's great. And are there any sort of surprising benefits that you've seen, maybe unexpected or other outcomes that you wouldn't have predicted 6 months, a year ago that you're seeing now?
Not really. I mean, I knew a lot about EasyRCA before we got involved with it. I'm really not. We're seeing a lot more people start to use it, but I kind of saw that coming. So really nothing really unexpected. All good stuff, but we kind of figured that was going to happen.
Yeah, knew it was going to happen. Great. And then is there anything you're wanting in the product? If you're like, hey, I've got the magic wand, here's what I'd love to see.
Well, I mean, there's a few enhancement ideas that I know you all are already looking into, and you're making a lot of changes. I know you're working on redoing the RCA page, which is going to be awesome when you get that rolled out. So, I like the fact that y'all are making, you're listening to people like me and you're actually making improvements, right? I mean, it's already great. You're making it better. And I see that to continue, right? I see it. You guys keep continuing to listening to people like me and making the product better. Great.
And then really kind of the last thing just to ask is around EasyRCA. Then I want to ask you a couple questions about where technology is going in general. As if you were talking to another organization considering EasyRCA, what would be maybe your advice to them in either considering it or wondering if it's the right thing for them? What are maybe some things they can think about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to lie. It sometimes it's hard to make that business case. It took me over a year actually working on this to get it approved. But so I think, just clearly showing the current roadblocks that you're having and how the tool can remove those roadblocks, and then how the tool will provide other benefits to your process, right? So if you clearly show that, and then you clearly have an execution plan, right? Here's how we're going to roll it out, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here's how we're going to train. That's really key. And then you just sit back and let the results speak for themselves.
That's really helpful. So even in that business case sense, when you identified roadblocks, just to be very practical for folks, did you create like a PowerPoint deck of like, here's 4 roadblocks and here's 4 ways it'll help? Or what exactly did you do in creating that business case? What tool did you use or way did you do it?
I did just that. I had a PowerPoint. Right, I had a PowerPoint presentation where I kind of laid out, here are our roadblocks. this is what the software is going to do for us, right? I had two columns and I had talking points, right? And that's exactly what I did. Yep.
And did you focus on the time savings or of the fact that more people would use it? What did you find to be the most compelling sort of result metric? Because obviously ahead of time, no one really knows what the results are going to be. So what did you kind of promise, if you will, or predict would be the main benefits?
Yeah, well, the main benefit was just improving the quality of the RCFA analysis, right? So we really couldn't say we think it'll save time, but we really didn't know. The reality is, and what we're seeing is, and people are telling me is, hey, Scott, this is saving us time. We're able to complete our analyses quicker. But really, it was all about, hey, this tool is going to help us get better. That was the main focus.
That's great. That's really helpful. Thank you for sharing all that. I think that's going to be really, really helpful. As you think about just kind of taking a step back on, obviously EasyRCA is one tool in a universe, an ecosystem of tools being used. How do you see the future of software, digital tools interacting with the experience of a reliability engineer? How are you seeing, whether it's AI or IoT or some of these other kind of buzzwords, affecting the day-to-day work that is happening?
Yeah, it's crazy out there. You really got to be open to this change, right? I mean, if you're resisting it, that's not going to be good. You got to really be open to it. But in particular, AI. So I see a time when we'll talk specifically about EasyRCA. There's going to be a time, I think, when you're working on an analysis. Let's say motor type XYZ failed, and there'll be a button in EasyRCA that you can hit, and the AI will automatically generate hypotheses of how XYZ type motor can fail, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, people like me have been in the industry and been exposed to so much. Like, I already could tell you how XYZ type motor would fail. I can always give you a bunch of hypotheses on that right now. But, we got all these new folks coming into the ranks that don't have that experience. Now they can use that to help them start on their analysis, right? Or check or verify, hey, am I missing something, right? So, I see AI in particular, moving in that direction a little bit.
Yeah, well, and obviously we've started doing that with this analysis assistant within EasyRCA, where it kind of can say, hey, based on more general things like a motor, here are potential hypotheses. But I think you're absolutely right that it's just going to get smarter and smarter at being specific to particular problems that one might be facing.
Yeah,
absolutely. For sure. Well, I always like to end with one final word. So what's one thing about your job or field of expertise that you think other reliability engineers need to hear, that other folks in the field need to hear? What would you say? Just kind of a final word. I mean, I think you've already shared some incredible things. So I think there's a lot people can benefit from, just as you've kind of outlined, your experiences with RCA. But is there any kind of final word you want to share?
I'll share a few. Just know that your organizational systems are a mess, right? Everywhere you go, it doesn't matter what plant you're in, there's issues there that you don't even know about. Think about James Reese's the Swiss cheese model. A lot of times we talk about safety and layers of protection. I like to think about that in terms of root cause analysis as well. And each piece of cheese is a system. So think of PMs or maintenance procedures or operational procedures, and there's holes, right? And all those pieces of cheese, which are your deficiencies in your systems. And there's always multiple systems involved, and there's a convergence of all these failure paths to cause an undesirable event. So you really need to have a learning mindset. Right. So when you're doing root cause analysis, you want to learn everything you can from that event. So if you have that mindset, you're going to get better results than just trying to think of, well, what's the one latent root cause, right? There's going to be multiple. And having that learning mindset really is going to help. And the other thing I would say, the last thing is really kind of understand that you can learn and get better at almost anything, right? So if you're not good at root cause analysis, hey, you can get better. If you don't think you're good at a good leader, right? Leadership is learned, right? Some people are born with a lot of the skills that make it easy for them, but you can learn leadership. You can learn public speaking, right? When I was a teenager, I wanted to be a motivational speaker, right? So I read a lot of Zig Ziglar books and things like that, but like I was terrified of getting up in front and talking to people, terrified. It would be like a bunch of ums and a couple words stuck in between, right? But I practiced that intentionally and I got better at it. And now I get in front of a class 30 and I talk for all day. I go talk at conferences where hundreds of people are there, no problem. So just know that you can get better at just about anything if you put the effort into.
It's good. It's a good word. That's a great encouragement to end on. And coming from the guy who runs marathons and rides for 7 hours straight, you're certainly putting your money where your mouth is in that sense. Well, thanks so much. Our guest today, again, has been Scott Wiebold. We are so thankful that you've been with us today. Thank you for sharing your experiences with International Paper and specifically using EasyRCA. And to all those listeners here, we're about helping engineers and really anyone take steps to successfully using technology to make their lives and their jobs easier. As a company, obviously, if you're looking for RCA training, resources, or material, please check out reliability.com. If you're looking to use a software platform to accelerate your RCA efforts, then check out EasyRCA.com. Well, that's all we have for today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on our journey to help make the world a more reliable place. Thanks again, Scott, and we will see you all on the next episode of Reliability 4.0. Take care.